Let's talk about one of the most challenging parts in a research initiative, that is theoretical part or theoretical framework. Before I proceed with the interesting and effective details of this part, I would like to remind you that so far you have successfully found your research focus and duly defined your interest. For example, let's have two broad fields such as literature and applied linguistics. If you are interested in literature and say that I want to research literature, that's too big, but it's a starting point and that's quite okay. After narrowing it down, you say, I want to work on one specific novel. Good, now the research is manageable. Explore possible angles inside the novel such as characters, feminism, identity, language and style, psychological conflicts, trauma and memory, society, culture, politics, and so on. At this stage, you may ask, what interests me when I read this novel? And there comes the theoretical part. For instance, you say I'm interested in female characters and how women are represented. Now you ask the most important question. Who has already written ideas about this? This question leads to theory. Now, how will you fix the theory step by step? First, identify the core idea. For example, your interest is women representation, power, voice, and the core idea is gender. Next, you look for theories that naturally talk about gender. You will discover feminist theory, liberal feminism, radical feminism, Marxist feminism, and postmodern feminism. And this is exactly how theory is chosen. Not randomly, not because it's famous, but because it fits the interest. You might ask a critical question. How many theories do I need? This depends on the research scope, not rules. Use one theory when it is master's degree program or undergraduate level, when your research focus is narrow and one lens is enough. For example, feminist theory alone. On the other hand, use two theories when one theory cannot explain everything and you need two perspectives. For example, feminist theory for gender and Marxist theory for class. The rule of thumb for beginners is one strong theory is better than many weak ones. An even more important thing, how will you know that this theory will work? Ask these three questions. Number one, does this theory talk about my issue? Number two, can it help me analyze the text? And the last one, have other researchers used it on similar texts? If the answer is yes, the theory works. The final step is to form your temporary title. For this, once your interest and theory are fixed, the title becomes easy. For example, your interest is women characters. The theory that perfectly matches is feminist theory, and the text is a specific novel. For instance, let's take Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. The possible titles are A Feminist Analysis of Female Characters in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Representation of Women in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, A Feminist Study, Gender, Power, and Identity in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Voicing the Marginalized, a feminist reading of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. And these are called working or temporary titles. Other than literature, if you are interested in applied linguistics, the same logic applies here as well. If you have decided that I want to research applied linguistics, great, now narrow it down. You will see classroom discourse, language learning, teacher talk, code switching, identity and language, English as a second language, and so on. Let's say that you are interested in how teachers talk to students in ESL classrooms. By this, the core idea will be classroom, interaction, power, language use. Now you start looking for theories that explain language in use. The possible theories you may find: discourse analysis, conversation analysis, critical discourse analysis, sociocultural theory, politeness theory, and speech ec theory. Now, if your focus is power and ideology, go for CDA. If it is turn taken and talk, then select conversation analysis. And if it is learning through interaction, choose sociocultural theory. I would reiterate, select one main theory, go for the second one, which is optional if needed. Accordingly, your temporary titles will be A Critical Discourse Analysis of Teacher Talk in ESL Classrooms, Power and Interaction in Classroom Discourse, a CDA study, Teacher-Student Interaction in ESL Classrooms, and Language, Power, and Pedagogy in ESL Teaching. Now, the big idea is that your research doesn't start with theory. It actually starts with your interest. Your interest leads to questions, and your questions lead to theory. Theory shapes analysis, and your analysis leads to a title. Hope this idea helps you. See you again.